Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Reverse the Verse Live, the only show that's done live and on Fridays. Man, I'm not going to tell you what kind of morning I've had. Joining us on the show this week are members from the VFX team over at Foundry 42 UK. Let's go ahead and just get right to the introductions and get started. Starting from, what is this, my right, my right. Ben, tell us who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
So I'm a senior member of the graphics team at Star Citizen. I work on shaders, rendering things, preventing crashes, causing crashes, yes. In the context of the gas cloud stuff that we did, I've sort of been leading that. I just seem to get into doing anything to do with volumetrics, to be honest. Anything to do with voxels, I end up being that guy. So
well, I imagine as a programmer, you basically every time somebody has some crazy harebrained VFX ideas, it's got to come across your plate at some point.
Actually, because I hate VFX terribly.
That's good to know.
All right.
When I arrived, I asked not to be the programmer that dealt with particles and stuff. So we actually have there's another guy that he's almost in your team now, isn't he? He's still technically on the graphics team. Yeah, Simon is.
Yeah.
Is your man now?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Fine.
But yeah, I've been thrust back into the VFX team via gas cloud and volumetrics.
Exactly.
That is how it tends to work here. It's just when you think you're out of something, they pull you back in, as the saying is. So that's
actually maybe I dragged you into my pit. Really,
that's deep.
Deep. It sounds like Descartes there. It's like I think, therefore I am. Let's just talk about Descartes for the next hour. You know who Descartes is? Philosopher?
I'm going to say yes.
I've heard of him.
The guy who doubted everything. He doubted everything in the world until he realized the only thing he could not doubt was that he doubted.
Ooh. That is intense.
Bold statement for a person who's called like a vehicle, the car.
It's been that kind of morning, everybody. That's Ben Perry. Over to his left is Mike Stone. Mike Stone, tell us who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Yes, I'm the VFX director at Cloud Imperium. And yeah, I direct all the visual effects, including the obvious ones: explosions, sparks, smoke, steam, all that kind of thing. And yeah, I direct this guy.
Like left or right.
Yeah, and I've got quite a big team actually of VFX artists and programmers. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's a good team. There's lots of us. We get our sort of fingers in all the pies, really, don't we? In particular, obviously the gas cloud stuff. Lots of VFX work involved in that.
How big is your team now?
Yeah. Oh, good question. I think is this
8, 9, 20?
Not 20, definitely not 20. Well, we got two artists in Frankfurt office. So we've got Caleb and Ollie, and then we've got
Jake, Aaron, Riley, you, and I. So 6, 8 total.
Yeah, 6. Yeah, 8. So 8 artists. We got 2 dedicated gameplay programmers who focus purely on VFX as well. We got Simon, as Ben mentioned. He does all the amazing particle improvements. That's down to Simon. We've got embedded QA. We've got Will, the QA guy, who tests all our stuff and makes sure it's all safe to put into the game. And we got Ben, other Ben Parr, not Ben Parry, Ben Parr, who deals with the production.
Do our presentation.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, big team, really. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's much bigger than the last time we talked to you guys about VFX.
Oh yeah.
Way bigger.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it had gotten that big. That was almost 20. That was like I lost count. Nobody's ever looked at Jared and said that guy's math, or simple addition for that matter. But somebody will have counted that in the audience. They'll tell us how many people that was. Last, but certainly not least, Mihail, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do for Star Citizen?
Yeah, I am a senior VFX artist, and I do whatever Mike tells me to do. No, basically just particle effects, visual effects, anime, and a little bit of code, and
some shader work as well.
Yeah,
all the
like-
interference stuff.
Yeah, that too. So a little bit of code. But I hate graphics programming.
Yeah, I can tell.
I'm sensing a theme. Glad this is why I'm in the middle.
It shows off to a great start. Now, Michal, you were one of the few people who had 2 panels at CitizenCon. You started your day with a panel in the smaller second stage, and then
Yes.
joined everybody else over the larger crafting stage. How did
yeah.
you end up doing 2 panels? What's going on there?
Well, I
told him to.
Yeah, basically, I'm doing whatever Mike tells me to do, and he was like, okay, how about 2 panels or 4 panels?
I
I was
think
like, okay.
you almost killed me at the start of your panel when you walked out there and you looked up and goes, this panel is called The Art of Digital Illusion, I guess.
Well, yeah, I actually did not invent a name, so I honestly could not remember how it was called. But I just thought I should clarify what is it actually about, because Art of Digital Illusion, it kind of doesn't sound like VFX at all. So I thought I'll just make it clear for people.
Are you saying you know more than our marketing department? Probably do. Just kidding.
But joking aside, it was fantastic that Michal did that presentation.
So, you're breaking up there. What's going on there?
Yeah.
Crazy
I'll do
feedback.
it again.
Losing their audio, JJ. All right. Can you hear me, guys?
Yep, sure.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, I was just saying. So it was great that Michal got to do that presentation, because it's not the particle system is something that has improved so much over the last couple of years. It's really nice to be able to kind of share with the backers exactly what, because a lot of that stuff goes into the game, but you don't
we
necessarily
never had
see
that
what
chance
goes
to
into
show
it.
all.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had another talk about like the coil and such, gas cloud, but like it was not a single place in which we could show all the new tech for the VFX, all the new content and such. So we had this idea to kind of gather all the new stuff. Well, actually, we have even more than we shown. But like, yeah, within that time slot that we had, which was like 20 minutes or so, we just wanted to show as much VFX and cool stuff that we could, and it was a really nice opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You bring up a good point. There's obviously at just 1 or 2 panels at CitizenCon, you couldn't talk about everything that makes up VFX and Star Citizen. We put a thread up earlier this week where we started collecting questions from backers who maybe couldn't be here live and whatnot. And we discovered through the course of the question collection that a lot of people, there are enough people out there that perhaps don't know what is VFX and what isn't VFX. Let's just start things off with a real simple kind of place setting question. What constitutes VFX within Star Citizen? Like what is when they look at the game, when they log in at 335 on the PTU right now, what are the things they're looking at that are VFX versus the things that are other art departments or other gameplay departments?
I guess I can.
Yeah, you can
start that
go
one off,
ahead.
yeah. So again, like to state the obvious ones, you've got when the ship explodes, you've got what we call the death mass. You've got that's all particles. That is VFX. So all of the particle system stuff, that's all VFX. Oh man, there's so many things.
Yeah,
VFX isn't just a case of. It's not just a case of just adding sparks to a level, although that's part of it. But there's implementation. There's gameplay implementation as well, using VFX to kind of give the player readability on gameplay inputs and things like that.
Yeah, but essentially, if you're looking at the game and you're thinking whether it's VFX or not, probably if it's not a character and it's like kind of like a sprite thingy, it's like VFX.
A sprite thingy. There you go. So VFX
Yeah,
is
so
a
for
sprite
example, like
if
sparks
it's-
obviously are VFX.
You're saying basically if it's stuff rather than
If it's
a thing.
stuff but not like geometry, it's probably VFX. But
Yeah.
at the same time, behind all the VFX is some graphics programming involved.
Yeah.
Like even putting a spark on screen, that's like it starts with someone programming all that stuff, and then we have a tool that allows us to control all of it, and we literally have like a list of parameters to control movement of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we do more or less.
It's also dynamic as well, isn't it? Especially in our game, like the VFX are dynamically controlled. So the thruster effects, which is something that I've talked about in the past, the engine trails falling off from that, and the coil presentation that we did, all of that is dynamic VFX. So it's sometimes used in our game to add extra detail to environments as well and give life to environments. It kind of touches a lot of things, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, but one thing that it's not lighting. Like I see it very often. Like people think if there is a light, it's VFX, but it's not. We have dedicated people to putting lights on a level. So if you're thinking like, okay, there is too much light, there is strobing, that's not VFX. We do like fire, we do like smoke, we do sparks. We also do some kind of more systemic effects that show gameplay. Like what's the boundary of this effect? For example, in like real-time strategy games, very often you got very clear visuals like shockwave that ends at this specific region. That's all coming from the VFX, but not like light, not the kind of general mood of the room or a space that doesn't come from VFX, but VFX do kind of add on top of it.
Although to add a bit of confusion, we do have lights in our effects
we
as
do.
well. So
but they are never
there's
like
crossover, isn't there?
It's never a key light because we don't cast shadows. It's not that precise, and we never put so many sparks to lit up a whole room.
Do you think it's fair to say we're somewhere in between the art and design teams as VFX?
We very often bounce back and forth.
We're serving both, aren't we? We're we're trying to make the environments look more alive. But equally, we're trying to sell gameplay as well. Even for things like a muzzle flash on a gun, we help the feel of it as well.
Yeah, the gun is not ours, but like dynamics are.
Yeah.
I think you hit it right there, Mike. It's bringing an environment to, or bringing an area of space to life. It's adding personality to any scene or location. I think is a great way. You demonstrated that really well in your panel, where you basically you showed us the glass cloud with you should not the test level with one with the ladders and the boxes. And here's a simple, boring, nondescript collection of items, and you showed us how just adding VFX and VFX alone could bring that simple scene to life and make it seem like so much more than it actually was. And if I'm allowed to shill for you a little bit. All right.
Appreciate that.
So we are taking questions in two places, guys. This show, if you're watching live on Twitch at twitch.tv/StarCitizen, you can submit your questions in the Twitch chat. We can preface your question with the word "question" in capital letters surrounded by brackets. That'll help our community management team pull it out from all the other conversation. You can also submit your questions live in Spectrum, which is our bespoke communication platform available on robertspaceindustries.com. Same process there. You pull them in, they'll send it to us. Right off the bat. Let's go to some of the questions that came in from the thread throughout the week. As 335 went live on PTU this week, we are seeing players experience a planet for the first time in Star Citizen. We've had moons, and as much as we see the moons referred to as planets quite often, we now actually have our very first planet in Star Citizen, and a lot of the discussion, especially since they turned planetary rotations on and now they can see day-night cycles and stuff like that, has been about the clouds, about cloud tech. Is cloud tech something that falls within the realm of VFX?
Well,
planetary clouds, because we know your presentation was about volumetric clouds. Are volumetric clouds the same thing as planetary clouds?
So most of the stuff to do with planets is handled by a distinct team in Frankfurt. So I know that there's something on Carsten's schedule for, like, he's got an idea for how to deal with the issue that planets they tend to have like a cloud deck that extends. It extends a really long way away. It curves with the surface of the planet and that kind of thing. Also, I think like planetary clouds have a very specific way that they tend to get lit, that you have to sort of skew much more close to reality than we had to for the space gas cloud. I think so. He's cautious about just saying, yeah, let's just use the gas cloud tech, because if we did that right off the bat, it would look pretty terrible.
They need to be dynamic as well, don't they? On the planets you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's still room that if when he's developing it, he decides that he wants the nearest area, like the nearest so many kilometers, to be sort of generated from the same source that his tech is rendering the rest of the clouds. Like, suppose they look great in the distance, but when you get close, they start to break down, or they don't solve all the problems that you would see if you actually have to see a ship weaving in and out of them if something goes kind of off key like that. At that point, I think it would make sense that we could generate from his source data, like sort of create on the fly some sort of procedurally generated gas cloud stuff. And I don't know. It feels like these things should be able to work
Sounds
together.
interesting.
But
Yeah.
I asked the question because it's another thing I wanted to point out that, when the question thread was titled "The Art of Space," this show I renamed it to "Bringing Life to Space." You guys work on space VFX, the gas cloud tech, the contrails of ships and stuff like that. Because planets are all the rage right now, a lot of our questions seem to be focused on planets, but that is actually not the team that you're not the team that work on planet side effects.
Well, we actually are. Yeah, but
Yeah,
Ben's talking specifically about the
gas
cloud
tech
stuff.
isn't
But
for planets,
yeah, my team does all the particle effects on planets. So all the kind of dust that you see on the kind of desert biomes and the pollen that you see in the air on the I can't think what it's called, where all the kind of forested part is. We do all the effects in my team. Yeah, Caleb actually in Frankfurt does a lot of the planetary effects.
And I guess once we'll actually get these clouds, we'll have to do all kind of rain and
for sure.
weather effects.
So this is the thing, like clouds is an interesting one, but for me, I'm really excited about tackling the weather effects.
Yeah.
And you can't have rain without clouds, or maybe you can, but in my head you can't. But yeah, we got there's lots and lots of scope for really cool stuff to do with effects. I think with the weather, I think
lightning.
I
lightning. Really hope we're gonna get some odd space weather on very odd planets.
Yeah.
Again, acid rain or lightning rain or.
Yeah. Why not?
Who knows?
Why not? We've got the means to kind of create those visuals, haven't we? So. Yeah.
All right. Well, you opened the door for planet questions, so we're going to do it then. Will you use the gas cloud technology you developed to create weather effects like rain, thunder, or wind in the sky on planets and moons? Or will that be and if so, will it be a static or a dynamically driven environment?
It sounds like a wrong question, really, because the gas cloud tech has nothing to do with, has, but not directly. It doesn't directly kind of do weather effects, Because
except the clouds.
Well, yeah,
you can do clouds.
You do the cloud, but kind of weather effects are VFX, so they don't come from the gas cloud tech kind of. We can drive some of the
but we can use
clouds.
we can use the same systems, like the particle.
Yeah.
The input could be weather parameters or whatever those parameters would be. We'll use those parameters to drive visuals for sure. I think there's a lot of similarities, at least from our side of things, and maybe not so much.
Yeah, I was just thinking like all the work we're doing towards sort of lightning strikes within the cloud as well. Yeah. Presumably they work from planetary clouds.
Of course, and
all that kind of stuff.
And that's the point. When we make these kind of systems, we're trying to make them in such a way that we're going to get maximum usage throughout the game. It's not like this can only work with gas clouds. As long as it's got the input, whatever that input is, we can provide the output with the visuals.
Like in terms of using the gas cloud for other environmental effects, like I don't know if if we had dust storms or something. Yeah, that would be an interesting one in that you'd probably want the gas cloud in some ways because it's quite good at like sort of filling a space. And
so that can provide that kind of volume.
But we don't really have the ability to update it every frame, so it couldn't be like boiling away.
Yeah.
But then when we go back to VFX, the outer edge of it, you could make it boil.
And this is exactly what we're doing with the gas clouds, isn't it? That's essentially a static thing, but we're using velocity fields to kind of push those particles along the surface. And if you mentioned like a dust storm, I know I've had conversations with Ian about that, and that's something we could definitely do.
One of the questions that came in from the live chat says that those volumetric clouds that you were working on, that you were showing at CitizenCon, would they be affected by passing objects? Can they swirl if you try to fly through them?
I think this comes back to that again, doesn't it? The actual core gas cloud tech couldn't swirl. for a start, the voxels of that are quite a lot bigger than a ship. I think I don't know how big one of them ended up being, but it's. I remember that you managed to lose a caterpillar. You put a caterpillar in the level, and then you lost it just by flying away from it.
Yeah, it's just there. It's just there for like a pixel, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
We
gone.
couldn't even see it. Like, we had a test video before we finished the whole kind of trailer, and someone asked me, I think it was you, if we can have a derelict in somewhere, just to kind of sell the scale. And I had like 4 or 5 cats. They are actually in the video, but you don't see them because they're so tiny. But the point is, like what you're saying, that the single voxel of the gas cloud is way bigger than the vehicle. So if that would move, you would essentially get like a Minecraft type of effect, where like a block just moves and
just a very
ship is
slow
tiny.
fade.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you put a layer of particles there,
then you can kind of
Where are we
sell
on
the idea.
swirling them as the ships fly through them? Are they? Is that
Swirling the
something that seems-
particles.
We do have gas cloud contrails. They were seen in the video. That's one of the things. Like, the gas cloud itself has a bunch of data that we can use. So I don't think we're gonna get like swirls, but we do have like contrails. So there are visuals. You're gonna see something happening with the vehicle as you fly through the gas cloud, and possibly when you exit, you will still be in that transitioning area. So you still-
I mean, do you have
wouldn't-
physics effectors on particles? Like
Physics.
affect I don't know, some sort of entities or markup or something.
Yeah, well,
so
like
that,
for-
if you got
if-
some smoke coming up, you can like wave a thing through it and it'll.
Yeah, well, I don't want to kind of like commit to things that we haven't done yet, but I totally want that.
Yeah,
So,
Alright.
that sounds like a pretty cool.
yeah.
thing to
In fact,
have.
weren't we just looking at a tech demo someone did the other day for that?
I
There was like
think-
a helicopter,
Yeah, there was this
flying.
video someone made it with like vector fields on a.
the vector field for
chopper.
the helicopter
It was
blades,
just
and it was
pushing,
pushing
like,
the rocket trails. and
aside,
it
and
was
everyone was
yeah,
looking at that because that's so cool.
yeah.
Or, and,
I mean, I'm just going to say it now. Yeah,
this is the
I
wish
totally
list.
want that. So,
yeah,
yeah.
that would be really awesome.
Can we have that?
Okay. Stay over a weekend, and Monday morning we'll be finished.
You just do some.
There you go. I've
graphic
just made a new task for Mihal live
how it
on
works.
air.
That's a tried and true reverse the verse happening. That's people making work for other people over the course of the show. It's I can show you in a special folder in my Outlook that's dedicated specifically to emails that come after RTV. It's like, what did you commit us to? What did you say we were going to do? So we'll just add that one to the list. All right. We talked a
In
lot.
case he watches this, sorry, Simon.
During the CitizenCon panel, you talked a lot about how space is actually quite boring. You know, lots of areas of nothing between 2 points. How do you go about finding that sweet spot between realism, which would be just absolute nothing, and this urge to just fill in every single nook and cranny with crap?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think some people might find it boring, and maybe we've used the word boring, but there's
Ali
nothing.
used the word boring.
It's actually in our game. It's going to be really nice to have the contrast. So there might be. I think I might have even said this in the presentation, but there might be times when you go into a gas cloud, say in the PU. One day you might go into a gas cloud and there's nothing there. It's just it's just the VDB as it was, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just going to be pretty. There's not going to be any kind of event with that.
Like I've seen people on the internet after seeing the gas cloud demo we've shown. We were talking that maybe we want to fill every single area with all this stuff, which is not entirely true. Is what you mentioned. Like we want that contrast where you see very dense area, like in real life. Like for example, you can have very kind of rich storm with wind and like debris flying and wind. We want that, but we also want empty places so we can kind of enjoy these areas with all this stuff. You need contrast to appreciate what you're seeing.
Right.
If you don't have it, then it's all same. So it's not really good.
And it's worth pointing out, like going to your presentation, you've just filled that area with all of the stuff. That's not like we're going to fill all shipping series with everything. That's just like this is all of the cool tools that we've got.
That's one specific room had so many things. It just felt right to have so many things in one kind of engine room. But you would go like to the following corridor. It's pretty empty, really. So we need that kind of
Yeah, it's all about the
contrast,
contrast, isn't it? Yeah.
You one of the images at least one of the images you used to show when you were showing what real space was from the OSIRIS-REx asteroid cataloging program. And you used one of their images when you say, yeah, this is space and it's kind of boring and whatever. I heard from them. There are backers. There are Star Citizen backers who work for the OSIRIS-REx.
I saw that.
Really?
Yes, I heard from them. So I'm here to defend their honor and say that it wasn't boring. It's beautiful.
That's why I'm saying I don't think it was boring,
I know,
but it's
I
not
know.
the word.
Yeah, I
I just had to poke the bear a little bit on that.
A trip to it might be quite boring though. Like I would bring a book, at least one book I would bring.
Yeah,
if
what
I
book
was
could you
having-
bring?
I don't know, quite a Kindle,
Big one?
maybe. Like
Yeah.
Kindle,
book,
like
the
single
entire
book with
works
all
of
the books.
humanity.
I want to make a joke about losing the screen because of interference, but I can't find a way to make it work.
I'll laugh for you. Haha.
Thanks, Miho.
A question from the live chat. Can clouds have mass, as in some sort of exploded tank full of gooey stuff in cloud shape that can clog up your ship's intakes or something? Can clouds become obstructions?
Oh yeah, we've. So that's not come online yet, has it? But
No.
the Flight Model 2.
IFCS.
Yeah, IFCS 2.
We're not calling
We've
it
been-
IFCS2.
Are we
Are we
not?
not?
No.
How are we calling it?
I don't know. We don't have a name for it. It's not called
Flight-
IFCS2. We
Flight
put too
Model
many
2.
We put too many 2.0s out there. It's not IFCS 2.0.
Okay.
Flight Model Next.
Flight model next. We didn't come up with a flashy. Right. We keep going. The new flight model. We'll just
Flight
call it the
Model
new
1.
flight model for
I'm
now.
going to call it Flight Model 1.
Go for it.
Um,
It won't catch on, but go for it.
Flight Model 0.
No, just give up now.
Okay. Flight Model X. Yeah, so we've had some discussions in terms of doing the gas cloud in Squadron. Like, do we get drag when you fly? If you fly too close to a wall, does it start to drag? And we've actually been told that you get drag, you get lift, like all of the atmospheric flight stuff effectively
And that's tied
does
in with
happen because there's data there that says there's atmosphere. So I think there's a sort of slider to control to sort of distinguish like how much is there for the visuals versus how much is there physically, because they're separate systems.
Yeah. So essentially, the denser it is, the more it's going to kind of buffet you
Yeah.
around. And
So yeah, we should get buffeting and
Yeah.
lift, and
so theoretically, I guess we could make it so thick that
it just chews you up.
yeah.
Somebody in the Twitch chat is like, so we tell Lando that VFX isn't just clouds. They did a whole thing at the beginning of the show about how VFX wasn't just clouds. I can't help it if you guys are asking cloud questions. I read the questions you guys send me. You guys send me cloud questions. I read cloud questions. Man, trying to step up to Lando. Okay, here's a non-cloud question. Thank you, chat. Are there any plans to use VFX for small critters such as insects or fish, like an electric eel or something? I don't know.
Yes.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Eel,
We've got insects technically in the game.
I think
Buzzing
Aaron
flies.
did, like flies, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Caleb did some. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know it's been talked about. We've got. I don't know if it's ever been mentioned, but there's a Boyd system, which
Yeah.
technically isn't particles, but I think there'll be some
Kind of
crossover
is,
with
yeah.
particles on a much smaller scale, and then Boyds for probably not particles for electric eels. That would be
But
my
That
Also,
would be a lot
I
of like
think
they'd be sort of physically flying.
yeah. I mean, you could do it. You could.
I
There's a way that
do
you
think
could
that
make it
once
work.
we'll get geometry on the GPU particle system, we might do more animals, kind of.
Yeah,
Like I've
maybe.
seen that
Like
cool
distant
example
animals, you
from
mean?
what was it, Infamous Second Son, I think.
Mm.
They actually had fish driven by particles, and they
Right.
did something very simple where they passed on the position of the player to that particle system. So whenever you were close to fish, let's just say, they were kind of being pushed away. And I think like that's doable. Not saying we get to it, but why not?
That's the same
Yeah.
same tech that makes the sparks that fall like from the hammerhead engine room when it's damaged and hit the geometry and it bounces off the geometry. The same tech, but make the fish particles so that they swim around. people.
Yeah. We got
Clever.
a bunch of different options to do different sorts of movements, and I believe we can kind of mimic movement of fish, especially that we've got curl noise, which essentially means that no line can ever cross each other, which means you can spawn a bunch of fish and they never gonna, go through another fish.
I can't believe we're talking about fish so much.
It's just cool. I like fish. I have an aquarium.
Fish has been a part of the Star Citizen conversation since the very beginning.
Just imagine like you're flying Gladius and you're hunting a fish with the nose of your Gladius, like kind of impaling them.
Never get there.
Like, what do you think?
I have no words.
Well, whatever. I think it's a really good idea.
When I woke up this morning, I knew it would be this kind of day. Right. All right, let's talk about shadows. Specifically, shadows for dynamic objects. This person says that sometimes they're let down by the image quality. Any plans to address this, or is it too big a technical hurdle? Basically, the shadows that are cast by dynamic objects.
Yeah, so we've had discussions about this on and off for years, in fact. So a lot of the stuff that we've done for static shadows on, we put like a static shadow area around like a hero location or something to at least get the static shadows on it. We've had some kinds of discussions about trying to more easily support more of them, but then also trying to support like live ones that update, so that you can, within a certain distance, maybe you'd sort of pick out where you need some dynamic shadows and you draw them over there. Or, well, this is one of like a dozen ways that we've sort of talked about trying to claw back some resolution and not spend all the memory on the GPU on it. The reason we've not actually got onto it is, though, that it doesn't, unlike a lot of the other things that we work on, it doesn't really block any of the other content teams. Like, nobody's waiting on us to make the shadows nice before they can implement something. So it's always something that we could do and we could check in and it would just be done. So yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. It's folks who follow our development very closely. I mean, the folks who watch ATV, who watch RTV, who watch Calling All Devs and stuff, can probably get a sense over the months and such about how important priorities are and why and how often things shift. I thought you were doing this next, and then now we find out that this isn't next, this other thing is next. And a lot of times that comes up because of what you just talked about, blockers. You find out it's like, well, we were going to move to this thing next, but to do that work is dependent on somebody else finishing their work, and their work is not done yet. So things tend to get reprioritized quite often based on dependencies. It's the things that free up more people. If you could work on this, and it allows 3 teams to do their job once you're done, or you can work on this and it allows 1 team to do their job, or you can do this and nobody else is affected by it. It makes it a pretty easy decision what you're going to be working on next.
I mean, the static shadows work, in theory, was down at that priority. It's just, I think we reached a certain point where people were putting things in and it did just sort of look terrible. And so we were like, okay, well, we can move this up the priorities just a little bit. We can at least get static shadows on a target location, just so that, I guess partly there is a blocker there, though, that the art team needs to see what they're creating. Does it look okay in game? Like, does it? They can't just put a load of stuff in and say this is going to look great when shadows finally happen.
Right.
So being able to see something in the distance with shadows on it, see that it actually does look good, I guess that was kind of a blocker for them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Are things like fire's a VFX, right?
Yep.
Fire's VFX.
Very much so.
People in the chat are asking if there are different types of fires. You always see fires, red fire, red flame, blue flame, yellow flame, so like that. Raging, small. If you, how far along are you on fire tech?
Well, I guess there's a couple of ways we could answer that. We've
2
got
questions really.
Yeah, so we've got it.
Whoever asked this question to a watch list.
Okay.
Go ahead and answer it, but we're adding this person to a watch list.
Okay, so I guess do you want to talk about the textiles side of it?
Yeah,
like the vision?
yeah. So kind of the first part of the question is kind of what types of fire do we have? And we actually do have our internal style guide. So we do know that we should have like classic fire, which is orange or red, and you get smoke and such. But we also get obviously other technologies such as John, Van Dul or whatever, and these they as a race as a technology that comes from a different kind of source. They use different materials, and as in real life, different materials, they do produce different types of colors and flames. For example, I know your kind of hob in the kitchen will give you a certain kind of flamey color. And if you burn a torch, it's going to give you like orange stuff. So we do have different varieties of fire. And it's not only about the color, but also about the amount of smoke, about how quickly the smoke dissipates, how thick it is, how much light do we emit, what textures do we use, so how it looks like, how many sparks do we have, if any, stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
we sort of loosely tie that in with what we describe it as like the efficiency of the thing that's burning. So a low tech ship would be the oily kind of classic smoky fire, as Mihal just described, and then you might have, like, if there was a high tech equivalent, it would be, well, I mean, it's kind of sci-fi. I think I describe it as like sci-fi blue.
Yeah, sci-fi blue, classic.
Yeah, far less smoke. In fact, no smoke. Much more kind of lens flare style. So yeah, we've got very, very clear. We know, like, when we start to tackle a specific thing, like a specific ship, we know that the manufacturer, per our internal style guide, is a certain tech type, and that helps us define what those visuals look like. And even if that's not something that's totally obvious to people playing the game, I think it kind of gives us a bit of a consistent visual language throughout the game, and it kind of gives us our initial cues about what this thing is going to look like. I think, sorry, Jared. I think another part of that question that I think is quite interesting, because we're going to be working on hazard zones in the future, and that is we're going to be looking at the behavior of fire in the game as well. So the room system itself, if there's oxygen, then it should burn more. If the fire itself could contribute to removing oxygen from that room, propagating fire. I'm not saying that like we'll be able to just set fire to burn the world, because that would be a stretch too far. But we've got a lot of plans in terms of the functionality of the fire as well. Yeah.
What about fire in different environments, like zero G? Does the size and shape of fire change with on planets or moons with lesser gravity, or up in space a ship that has no gravity whatsoever?
Well, all our particles are built to work. We've basically got gravity scale on our effects,
like,
haven't we?
gravity is not something that really defines the kind of shape of fire. If you look at physical properties of fire itself, like, gravity does not. Well, yeah, it does.
I think there'll be people disagreeing with you on the chat. Sure.
But what I mean is there's more to it. There's like pressure. There's the source and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think it ties in a bit with what you were asking before, Jared, about the balance between completely realistic and pure Hollywood. Right. I know that there'll be people saying, well, why have you got a fireball in space? Because it's not technically possible. We straddle the line between Hollywood and real life.
I would just say Fireball's delicious, and I like
true.
a good Canadian whiskey. All right. From fire to water, is there any? Do you guys touch? Hurston added oceans, added water to the game. Is there any bit of that the VFX team touches? Splashes, some kind of.
We haven't yet. I mean, people who've kind of experienced the water in the game will know that there's no kind of impact effects yet, but and that's primarily because, again, the Planet team have kind of worked on that core tech, and for sure we're going to be needing to add impacts to that.
Bubbles,
probably,
maybe even fish.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Like splashing fishes. Fish.
Mihal with the fish again.
It always comes back to fish sooner or later. All right, back to the gas clouds. Has there been any talk about gas clouds that can damage our ships? Well, I mean, you showed effects that gas clouds can have to ships in your demonstration, but
yeah, I mean that is them really, isn't it? We've got a whole bunch of hazards that we want to put in there. I think I think we've sort of skewed away from the gas cloud itself damaging the ship. Like
Yeah.
flying into it sort of slows you down. And you get lost in it.
Indirectly, it could damage you.
It's
Yeah.
not
But you get
Yeah.
struck by
the
lightning.
gas cloud. It's what's inside the
Yeah.
gas cloud that kills you. Yeah.
Although we don't have that thing from Solo in there, as far as I know.
We don't have what?
The thing from the Solo movie. Big eye.
No, we don't have that thing, no.
I mean, I've not checked everywhere around it, but
I've never seen it.
okay, good.
Yeah.
When you guys did show off the planetary cloud tech at CitizenCon, one common thread that has come up over and over and over again has been about Crusader, and what it means for an entire like gas cloud planet like Crusader. What are some of the technical and art related challenges that you guys can foresee? As I know we just showed that we're working on ArcCorp on ATV. We're also doing some work on Microtech right now. When it comes time to work on Crusader, is the gas cloud tech something that can apply to Crusader, or are we starting from something wholly new or at scratch?
Let you go on this one.
I think we've had discussions about this. We really don't want to start an entirely new piece of tech just to do Crusader, obviously. I think the basic plan for it was literally take everything that we're doing and throw them all at Crusader. I think these were sort of very rough plans as far as I remember them, but it was sort of like, if we're doing separate like planetary clouds and gas clouds, then we could have a layer of planetary clouds, we could have a layer of gas cloud, we could have like a sort of POM texture, like the deeper areas maybe that you wouldn't get into. We could have a couple of layers of POM textures just sort of moving around to give you the sense of all the extra layers. You could, the gas cloud layer you could embed the floating platforms and the cities and everything into, I guess. I think that there would be a lot of extra things to solve along the way. Using gas clouds in atmosphere, I think, would be an issue at the moment.
Might be a sorting thing.
It's not just the sorting thing, but people who've done quite nice cloud demos, they have some sort of solution for light coming from outside. You know, like
Right.
the skybox needs to shine through the clouds to give it that kind of rich lighting, which we don't have to deal with in space as much. But yeah, it's pretty much just layer up everything that we've got and sort of see where the edge cases are or what's still missing, and then put VFX over them.
I see a lot of people.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people in the chat going, "Floating cities." I'm like, "Oh, if you don't know Crusader, Google Star Citizen Crusader. Crusader is the planet. Everybody's got their favorite planet, favorite system, whatever. Crusader's been the one that this land has been looking forward to for a long time. It's Cloud City, baby."
I mean, it scares the hell out of me, but
It scares the hell out of everybody. That's why we're working on all the other ones first.
yes.
No, it'll be cool. If you said it scares the hell out of me, but quite honestly, in my experience with Star Citizen, which has been about almost 5 years now, the things that scare us tend to be the most impressive. I think when we come at something that's like, when you see a problem, you see a challenge, and like, oh yeah, we know how to do that. It's like, all right, it's done and it's good, it's whatever. It's when something scares us, when something goes, oh, how the hell are we going to do that? That's when all the best creative comes together, and I'm always consistently amazed by what.
I mean, honestly, the gas cloud's a similar kind of thing originally, wasn't it? It's like,
Yes,
wow,
it was.
this is technically a heck of a challenge. More for you.
It was an interesting first task to be given at the company.
Was that your first task?
Yeah.
Right.
There you
Wow.
go. The most complicated
I
task that
asked for
we
something
have.
simple that would take me on a bit of a tour so I could get used to the different engine systems.
Yeah.
And Ali said, here's some concept art for a gas cloud.
Classic Ali.
Just do volumetric clouds that no one has ever done before. Should be fine.
Yeah.
Some
Really got-
screenshots of the attempts that we tried and failed.
Yeah.
Don't do those. Have at it.
During your presentation, we showed lightning in the gas clouds. Is lightning something that will cast shadows?
Yeah. Actually, we did have shadows for lightning lights, but I think there was a bug and they didn't work during.
Ali
recording.
fixed it at the last minute, but didn't want to risk
Yeah,
trashing the build.
yeah,
rates.
Yeah, we
what's the
didn't
risk
have a
at
chance
the
to
time?
record it the playthrough, did we?
Yeah.
With
So
with
yeah, the
shadows?
answer is yes.
I mean, the lights are they're where the lightning comes from and where it hits. Like we don't have every individual zigzag of it emitting light individually because
Yeah.
that would crash the
Honestly,
GPU.
you don't even need to have it because we can increase the radius of these lights, so in between you still get some shininess, and all you do really care from visual point of view is kind of, it's so fast. First of all, you don't even see that there is light missing in between. Second of all, see kind of impact and kind of distraction happening after. So 2 lights are good enough.
We've had a number of questions, all related to planetary weather effects. What can you tell us about your involvement in planetary weather effects and where we're going?
It's going to sound like the same answer, really, as the ones. But with the Planet team, like those guys, there's things that they're working on. That once there's a couple of things that are going to come in that are going to get done and finished that will then kind of open the floodgates for us to do our thing, if that makes sense. We've got tons and tons of cool ideas for weather, and it's one of the things that actually really excited me about planets in the first place. When I first kind of talked to the guys in Frankfurt, I was like, oh wow, yeah, we could do tornadoes and dust storms and rain showers and all that kind of thing. So we totally got plans to do all that. We're just waiting on a few key things first before we can really go for it.
Yeah, I need rain over Lorville to really get me to that Blade Runner level that I need.
So the thing about that is because it's not purely a particles thing, because we could make a rain effect easily.
Yeah.
We need to have rain affecting how the shaders look, on the visor and the canopy and things like that. So it's not something that the VFX team alone are going to be solving. It'll be the graphics guys.
Big complex system, really, like getting the wetness, getting like paddles and such, getting, I don't know, maybe even changes to the flight model during rain or storms, and possibly if the storm's happening next to water, kind of fish flying out of it.
I mean, not to mention that like you can do particle rain close up, but there's got to be some point where, like, if you're looking at a rainstorm coming in on the horizon, you can always see that there's rain. You can see like this volumetric
there is
block
fog
of rain, and that eventually turns into actual rain.
So
So we'd need something to do that.
The thing that excites me
it's
actually
volumetric, so it's probably going to be me.
But imagine being up in space and seeing the rainstorm below you, like you're going towards that planet. That's what excites me. Seeing that storm happening when you're safe in space from it.
But that does mean that it has to be seamless when we do it.
Well, everything does in our game. That's the exciting and challenging thing, isn't it? It's like it's real, It's like, oh, that's a storm in the distance, but now I'm flown and I'm in the storm. So lots of stuff to kind of get our heads around that.
No, if I can start in orbit and I can come down through the rain clouds and come down to Lorville and come down to a single person standing on top of a building doing the Roy Batty monologue over face over IP in the rain, that will be like, I'm done at that point. That's all I need for Star Citizen. You give me
then
that.
You accidentally land the ship on them.
Accidentally.
Sorry, I misjudged you.
Let's go from the planets up to the stars. Will we see something like coronal mass ejections or solar flares? And if so, any ideas about how they'll affect gameplay?
Are we even capable of getting that close to a star?
Well, it's definitely on the list of things to do to make the effects.
We weren't doing that up close. I mean, like,
I think
this is well outside.
Yeah.
So going close to a star is a huge technical task that sort of doesn't give you a lot of gameplay. But I know it's sort of on everyone's. It tends to be on people's list to do, regardless of sense or.
Just
land on the sun.
Just from the point of view of the effects themselves, it's definitely on our backlog. And I've chatted briefly to Todd regarding gameplay permutations for that. But I'm not going to speak for Todd. I'm not going to speak for design on what the gameplay implications are.
No.
Yeah. But I think you're right. Like, logically, you'd think, well, the gameplay implications are if you go towards it, you get too close, you die. So.
Yeah, graphics-wise, the only issue is that, well, there are many issues, but one of the significant issues is that we tend to treat the sun as like a small ball in the distance that there are various equations that kind of fairly reasonably approximate what that's going to do to the lighting. When you start sort of flying right up to it, for a start, you have to dim it down because, like, there are sort of what do you call it? The exposure adaptation on the camera isn't able to do the brightness of landing on the sun. So you end up having to sort of dim it down to what photos of the sun tend to look like.
Right.
Yeah.
But then also you're now landing on the surface of this ball. So some of those equations take some shortcuts that don't really handle like something bigger than the Earth that you're touching. So
yeah, I was going to say that sure we can do all that VFX, but technically the sun is so bright you should not be able to see anything happening on the surface. So is it worth it? I mean, yeah, it depends on what do we want to show.
Also,
really.
if you're laser
missing this,
canning,
Michal.
damage a ship.
You're missing this. You leave it so bright that nobody can see, and then you just tell them it's all there.
I know.
We've done all this. Oh, there's coronal ejections and sun flares, and there's a billion particles going on. You just can't see it because it's so bright. Sorry, guys. That's realism. You wanted realism.
You can
frame
actually
rate's still
use the
great.
fire propagation system to distribute the fire on the surface of sun.
Yeah.
But I think I have a write-in answer from Ali on that one that says yes, we are doing those effects.
Yeah.
That's basically what I said at the start.
We're almost out of time. We only got time for a couple more questions. Good job, guys. Mirrors. This person says, will I ever be able to see myself in the mirror? Standing in front of an empty mirror freaks me out. This is obviously not. This is sent by an Anne Rice.
Yeah, so mirrors are definitely something we've wanted. I think we need them for Squadron for a couple of scenes. So they're definitely on our roadmap. The caveat on that is that they're only able to really be used in some sort of controlled environments. They do trigger a lot of extra rendering work. So if you're in the middle of Lawville and you're looking at an advert somewhere, and then we just replace that advert with a mirror, you've kind of just probably half the frame rate. So,
And then if you don't,
the advantage of bathrooms is that they tend to be small. So we can set up mirrors in places where we can already afford the frame rate to include the mirror, basically.
yes, and then if you don't think if one of them is small enough to be grabbed and movable, like people won't grab mirrors and put them in front of mirrors, and then the things that people do in an MMO environment with mirrors will see no end. So,
Yeah, movable mirrors would be a headache.
let's see. Is it possible to use? We're back to the cloud questions. Is it possible to use pre-simulated velocity fields to create swirling gas clouds that we can fly through? Or is this scenario limited by something like the sign distance fields?
That's actually something I asked you not that long time ago.
What was the answer, Michal?
No?
Yeah, the exact technical reasons for that being difficult, it's to do with how to put it, because we did a test that had a similar, for different reasons we were trying to break up sort of like pixel edge detail. So when we're ray marching, obviously we have this big texture and we're reading through it, making tons and tons of samples. If you introduce something where you have to read one thing to offset where you're going to read another thing, it introduces a small delay on the GPU. And if you do hundreds and hundreds of samples and each one of them has a separate offset that has to be calculated from another texture, I think it did something ridiculous, like it multiplied the time it took to draw by about 5. So in theory, you could have a sort of a not a sign distance field, a vector field that sort of each frame we sort of moved along, kind of like the vector field stuff we do on particles. It's just it's not going to be feasible. Also, things like the shadows that we pre-calculate for those wouldn't update. So it's more likely that we'd use something static and then we'd put particles on the outside. And maybe those particles would themselves be using.
That's the thing, because
motion within the particle.
So the end visual might actually look like what you're expecting it to look like.
Just by using different techniques
of VFX in the actually.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's it. You're done.
That's it.
What?
Congratulations.
That was fun.
You don't have a bad joke to tell.
Not this time. I forgot to find a collection of dad jokes.
I was gonna say, didn't you come with a bad joke last time?
I did. I can repeat the joke.
Do you remember the joke from last time? It was like 2016.
Yeah.
You remember the joke?
Yeah.
Hit me
I
with
do.
it, 'cause I don't remember the joke. Hit me with the joke.
God,
Give me 2 seconds.
I've got my eyes closed.
It was quite bad. So, have you heard an explosion in the cheese factory last night? No, because there was a lot of debris.
Now I know I didn't remember that one.
Yeah, it just burned a hole in your memory.
It's a self-preservation instinct.
2 years from now, I'm gonna tell the same joke again.
2 years from now
Right.
when we have your back. All right, guys. Ben, Mike, Michal, thank you so much for taking your time to be here on the show with us this week. It's these shows where we get to highlight departments that don't always get their time in the sun are some of my favorites. It's you know me. I always like to do the things that no other video game developer would do, which is let's put the VFX guys on a Q&A for an hour live.
It's madness.
What damage could it do?
I appreciate it. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I really like being able to highlight the work that everybody on this product does as much as I can. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, that's it. Remember, if you didn't see ATV yesterday, you should check that out. There will be no Around the Verse or Reverse the Verse next week because we have our Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States. We will instead have some unique anniversary special content for you to view starting next Friday. So you'll see that instead of RTV. And then we'll be back the week after that. And who knows who we'll have now. Maybe we can do a show with human resources or something. That's the last white whale. That's the last department I've never gotten. Just an hour with talking with human resources about how to fill out a 9-9.
What about office managing? Like person buying milk and stuff?
Hey, those office managers hold this studio together. They
Hell
do
yeah.
a whole
I'm
lot
not
more than
joking.
just buy milk.
Yeah.
Just curious if
They do a
they've
whole
been.
lot. No, actually, that would
That's
be
why
a
we
good.
want an RTV about.
No, actually, maybe not RTV, but maybe now I'm going to call an office manager on calling all devs because they do deserve their time to shine. All right, guys.
So.
Coffee every single day, so yeah.
Yeah. Except our office manager has absolutely refused to ever be on camera, so that could be hard. Maybe we'll do like with a sheath over, like one of those unknown people who are doing testimonials with a voice transmogrifier. All right, guys, that's it. That's Ben. That's Mike. That's Michal. I'm Jared. We'll see you not next week, but sometime after that. Take care, guys.
See it.
Thanks for watching. For the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42, you can subscribe to our channel, or you can check out some of the other shows, and you can also head to our website at www.robertsspaceindustries.com. Thank you very much for watching.